Today, we're going to be applying three key ideas so that we can add photorealism to black and white images. We're going to talk about the Move tool, opacity, and selection inversion. What do we need to know about the Move tool? Well, the auto select layer has to always be checked. When we're using the Move tool, and in the upper left hand corner, default is to have this unchecked. You're going to want to make sure it's checked because when we go into Photoshop and we're working with something that has lots of layers like this Wreck-It Ralph image, if you click on his hair, for example, it automatically jumps to the hair layer. If you click on this little purple guy, it jumps to the purple layer. If you click on his red checkered shirt, you can select it and then you can go through and play around with this image and manipulate and move things significantly easier than going back and forth from just the layers palette. So what's next? Opacity. That's the degree to which you can see through a layer, and I'll give you an example real quick with Mickey Mouse. So I'm going to create a new layer. That's important. I'm going to now create a quick little rectangle, and I can see when I'm looking at this that the opacity is at 90%. That means you can see through it just a little bit, but it's pretty significantly red. If I increase opacity to 100% and I do this, you're not able to see behind the red rectangle at all. Because this is on a new layer, if we go into our layers palette, we can drop the opacity to 50%, just about, and we can see that the further we go along the line, the more we can see through it. Now, if I bring it up to 100% and we're using the Move tool, if I press 8, for example, it jumps to 80% opacity, 3, 30% opacity, and then 0 back to 100% opacity. You're probably thinking, that's nifty, but how does that relate to adding photorealism? Well, the third final idea is selection inversion, which is Command-Shift-I on a Mac. We're going to want to combine opacity and selection inversion so that we can add textures to this, for example, Mickey Mouse comic. All right, so what I'm going to do is I dragged this sort of blue cloth layer over Mickey Mouse, and that's all well and good. What I need to do now, however, is unlock this background image. I'm going to double click to unlock. I'm going to drag Mickey to the top. Great. So what I know is that when Mickey's on the bottom, if I press 5, make sure you're on the right layer. So I'm going to press back to 0. I'm going to switch to the cloth layer. I'm going to press 5. And I can see that this cloth completely covers the overalls and this Mickey illustration. I'm going to return to 0. It's at 100% opacity. I'm going to drag it beneath the black and white Mickey Mouse cartoon. I'm going to select the magic wand. Now what we're going to do is select multiple areas. I'm going to click once. And this is critical, guys. You want to make sure you're on the right layer. So I'm going to go back to Mickey. I'm going to press Command D to deselect. And I'm selecting the overalls. I'm holding Shift to select multiple areas. Great. Now what I'm going to do is press Delete. And we cut right through the Mickey Mouse comic or illustration. Now we're going to invert the selection by pressing Command-Shift-I. And now we're going to press Delete it once again. And when we do that, we deleted everything. Mickey's gone. That's no good. Clearly, that's not what we want to do. So the most important step in this operation is switching layers. We want to go back to this cloth layer. And now when we press delete, everything outside of the overalls is gone. And I'm going to hide Mickey Mouse for a second, and we can see that's all that's left. And that's great. That looks beautiful. I'm going to press Command D to deselect, and it looks great. So how exactly does this work? I'm going to, let's say I select Mickey's face, right? What we're going to want to make sure we do is we're on the Mickey layer, and I'm going to use the paintbrush, and I'm painting just on his face, right? And even though I'm painting outside it, only the interior selection is influenced by the brush. If we press Command-Shift-I, now I'm going to try to paint on his face, except it's everything except his face that's influenced. We inverted the selection. And so that's the most important part of selection inversion and adding textures. So let's say we wanted to drag this in, bring in this cloth, and let's put this sort of over his glove. So I know it completely covers his glove. I'm going to drag it down. I'm going to use the magic wand tool. I'm going to select on his hand. Make sure you're on that Mickey Mouse layer. Select on his hand. I'm going to hold Shift and select multiple areas. Now we're going to press delete. and we cut right through it, right? But what I know is I see all that cloth layer sort of on Mickey's belly. We want to get rid of that, along with everything else. To do that, Command Shift I, switch to this brown cloth layer, press delete. And now all we're left with is his glove and his overalls. It looks good. He's got another glove, so we can do the same thing again. I'm going to use the move tool. I'm going to drag it in. I'll drag it above Mickey just for a quick minute. I'll put it right there. Drag it beneath Mickey. I'm going to use the magic wand tool, making sure we're on the Mickey layer. I'm going to hold Shift to select multiple areas. That looks great. I'm going to press delete. Command Shift I, switch to the cloth layer, delete. Beautiful. So you're going to want to go through. You're going to want to add lots of cool layers and textures to your Mickey Mouse illustration of choice. And let's add this final one to a shirt. I'm going to make sure that Mickey layer is on top. I'm going to use the magic wand tool. I'm going to select a shirt, all the different areas of a shirt. I'm going to press delete, Command Shift I, switch to that new I don't know, I'm not even sure how you would describe it, flowery texture. Delete, Command D, and that looks pretty cool. So we're on a good start to add textures to all of this. For this wrench, I might add like a metal texture. My recommendation for you is to go into Google, do an image search for cloth texture, but then click on search tool and change the size to medium. When you do that, it's going to make finding images a lot more sort of appropriate size for the kind of composition that we're using. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking forward to seeing you work. Let me know how this goes.